Every empire that went to war believed its money would survive. Every government promised its economy was strong enough. But history proves they were always wrong. From ancient Persia to Nazi Germany, from Vietnam to Iraq, war doesn't just destroy lives. It destroys money. And when it does, it happens fast. Let me tell you a true story. In 1941, Japan froze all American assets overnight. The next day, they bombed Pearl Harbor. Millions of ordinary people woke up to find their savings, their businesses, their entire financial lives caught in the crossfire of a war they never wanted. I know it sounds distant and historical, but here's the uncomfortable truth. We are living through that moment. Right now, Iran and the United States are closer to direct conflict than they have been in over 4 decades. And history tells us exactly what happens next. So here's the uncomfortable question. What happens to your money when superpowers go to war? What does history actually tell us? Because one thing has always survived, and it's not what most people think. Let's dive in. The hidden cost of war, nobody talks about. Most people think about war in terms of missiles and soldiers, but every war in history has been fought twice, once on the battlefield and once in the economy. And the economic war always hits ordinary people hardest. Here's the truth. War destroys the value of money, not slowly, not gradually, overnight. And the reason is simple. Wars are expensive. Governments can't afford them. So they do what they've always done throughout history. They print money. And the moment they start printing, your savings start dying. We look at our bank balances and think we're safe. But history tells us a very different story. Ancient Persia and Greece, the first war economy. When Persia invaded Greece in 480 BC, it wasn't just a military campaign. It was the most expensive undertaking in the ancient world. To fund it, Persian Emperor Xerxes drained his empire's treasury. He melted down gold reserves, debased silver coins, and taxed his provinces into poverty. The Persian economy never fully recovered. Meanwhile, in Greece, Athens did something remarkable. They found silver mines at Laurion and used every coin, not just to build warships, but to stabilize their economy. The Athenians who survived weren't the ones with paper promises. They were the ones who held real silver and real assets. Sound familiar? World War I, when Europe destroyed its own money. In 1914, every major European power abandoned the gold standard. Why? Because gold limited how much money they could print, and war required unlimited spending. Britain, France, Germany, they all did the same thing. They printed, and printed, and printed. By 1918, the British pound had lost nearly half its purchasing power. The French franc was devastated. But Germany was different. They didn't just print during the war, they kept printing after it. By 1923, the German mark had become so worthless that workers were paid twice a day so they could spend their wages before they lost value by afternoon. A wheelbarrow full of cash couldn't buy a loaf of bread. The people who survived weren't the ones with savings accounts. They were the ones who had converted their paper into real assets, land, gold, foreign currency. Anything the government couldn't print. Vietnam, oil, and the dollar. Fast forward to 1971. America had been fighting in Vietnam for years. The cost was staggering, billions upon billions of dollars. To pay for it, the United States did what every empire before it had done. They printed money. So much money that foreign governments started to panic. France actually sent a warship to New York Harbor to physically collect their gold from Fort Knox because they knew what was coming. On August 15th, 1971, President Nixon did the unthinkable. He ended the dollar's connection to gold entirely. Just like that, the world's reserve currency became backed by nothing but a promise. Within 2 years, oil prices quadrupled. Inflation exploded. Ordinary Americans were devastated. The people who saw it coming and held gold watched their wealth multiply overnight. The people who trusted the paper promise lost everything. Iraq, Afghanistan, and the $8 trillion question. Here's something your financial advisor won't tell you. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost the United States an estimated $8 trillion. When you include long-term costs, $8 trillion. That money didn't come from thin air. It came from debt, from printing, from inflation. Every dollar printed to fund those wars made your existing dollars worth less. Your grocery bills went up, your rent went up, your cost of living went up, not because of bad luck, because of war spending. And now, as tensions between Iran and the United States escalate to levels not seen in decades, that same machine is warming up. Again, what Iran means for your money right now. Let's be direct. A conflict between Iran and the United States wouldn't just be a Middle Eastern problem. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil passes through that narrow waterway every single day. The moment that strait closes, even for a week, oil prices explode globally. And when oil prices explode, everything else follows. Food prices, transport costs, manufacturing, electricity. The entire global economy runs on oil. This isn't speculation. This is history, repeating. In 1973, Arab nations cut oil exports to the West. Within months, gas prices quadrupled in America. Inflation hit double digits. The stock market collapsed. People who held oil stocks, gold, and hard assets came out ahead. Everyone else paid the price. The pattern that never changes. By now you should see the pattern clearly. Ancient Persia drained its treasury and never recovered. Rome debased its coins to fund endless wars and collapsed from within. Germany printed its way through 2 world wars and destroyed its middle class twice. America printed trillions for Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and passed the bill to ordinary savers. Every single time the same thing happened. Paper money weakened, real assets survived. And the people who understood this before the crisis hit came out ahead. The people who trusted the paper promises lost everything. What survives when war breaks out? So what actually holds value when nations go to war? History gives us a very clear answer. In ancient Greece, it was silver and land. In World War I Germany, it was foreign currency and gold. After Vietnam, it was commodities and hard assets. After 2008, it was cash to buy what panicking people were forced to sell. The pattern never changes. Paper dies. Real value survives. Gold, silver, land, energy, food, skills. These are the things that outlast every war economy because they don't depend on any government's promise. They're useful, even when trust is gone. What you can do today. You don't need to panic. You don't need to stockpile weapons, but you do need to start thinking like a historian, because historians know that what's coming before economists are willing to admit it. First, understand that war means inflation. Always, without exception. If a major conflict breaks out involving Iran and the United States, oil prices will spike, supply chains will break, and governments will print to cover the costs. Your cash savings will quietly lose value. Second, think about diversification differently. Not just stocks and bonds. Those are still paper promises. Think about assets that war economies cannot destroy. Energy stocks, commodities, precious metals, land, things that become more valuable when the paper system starts to crack. Third, reduce your exposure to fragile systems. High consumer debt in a war inflation environment is devastating. The people who entered the 2008 crisis with debt were crushed. The people who entered with liquidity bought assets at historic discounts. I know this is all easier said than done. Life is expensive. Inflation is already real. Sometimes just keeping your head above water is a win. I get it, but do what you can. Start small. Even if all you do today is think differently, that's a step. And that shift in thinking could protect everything you've worked for. The uncomfortable truth. Throughout history, every nation that went to war told its citizens the same thing. Don't worry. The economy is strong. Your money is safe. The system will hold. And every time when the bills came due, it was ordinary people who paid the price. Not the generals, not the politicians, not the bankers, the ordinary person holding paper promises. So maybe don't just hold promises. Don't assume the system will protect you when it's the system going to war. Instead, hold something real. Real value, real assets, real skills, things that no government can inflate away. Things that survive, not just peace, but war. Because history doesn't repeat for empires alone. It repeats for the people who ignored it. And right now, history is repeating, louder than it has in a very long time. This channel exists to give you the financial and historical perspective the mainstream won't touch. If this video gave you a new way of thinking, subscribe and hit the bell. Because what's coming next in this series will connect dots most people never see. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.